and welcome back to another episode of the Young Dad Podcast. Whether you're outside grilling, mowing the lawn, changing dirty diapers, shoveling snow, I don't know what time of year it is, but whatever you're at, wherever you're doing, hopefully you finally got a moment to sit back, relax, and listen to your favorite podcast. I'm your host, Jay. Super excited to have you with us. Super excited to be here. Grateful that you're taking the time to listen to the podcast. As always, that opening beat that you hear and the closing beat that you occasionally may hear are brought to you by the Podbeat app. So make sure you go and check them out. Podbeat allows you to turn any podcast into a musical experience for free from the App Store or wherever you get your apps from. So with that, today I have a truly remarkable guest who is passionate about inspiring the next generation through gratitude and legacy. Joining me is, and I'm going to try not to butcher this, I try to put out the phonetic pronunciation in my doc here, but Carew, also known as the Cowboy Philosopher, so we're going to go with the Cowboy Philosopher, it's going to be easy here, is an award-winning author of the best-selling inspirational book, The Legacy Letters. Though fictional, this book has gained the unique distinction of being the only one in publishing history to win awards in both fiction and nonfiction categories. A true Renaissance man, the Huffington Post says Carew intrigues and enlightens, charms and catalyzes change for every reader, living his book's central message to live life to the fullest. The Cowboy Philosopher has performed innovative and adventurous first ever book signings on top of volcanoes, while riding horses, and even while stomping grapes. When you sign books, it doesn't matter. His creative efforts extended to his CarewTube video series, including the I Love to Read initiative and annual Great Book Balloon launch, all designed to inspire kids and adults to rediscover the joy of reading. As an educational thought leader, Carew is deeply committed to teaching people of all ages about personal and global legacy issues. He's the creator of the National Thank You Letter Day, which I love a good thank you letter, and the world's largest thank you letter, for which he received a Guinness World Record. His work emphasizes the importance of gratitude education as a vital tool for addressing the mental health crisis affecting American children. Gratitude can do a lot for one, I will say. Today we'll dive into Carew's inspiring journey, discuss the mental health benefits of gratitude, and explore how we can teach our kids to build resilience through simple yet powerful practices. So grab a seat, grab a snack, grab a juice box, get comfortable, and let's welcome the Cowboy Philosopher to the show. Welcome.
Y'all. Good morning, Jay. How are you? And good morning to all your listeners.
I'm super excited to have you. What a story. And I personally love a good thank you letter. I started, I don't know, maybe probably about 20, 30 episodes ago when I started sending out thank you notes. After I received a thank you note from a fellow podcast host, I was like, this is a really cool idea. So I went on Amazon, I ordered some thank you notes and ordered some stickers to put in them too. I ordered some like little sensory stickers for like a breathing exercise as well to throw in those little thank you notes. And so I've been sending them out ever since. So yours will be in the mail post this recording, of course. But
you're the best, man. Love to hear it. Pass that good word on.
I love a good thank you card. Just the messages back are so inspiring. Like people will be like, I've been on this many podcasts or X number of podcasts, never received a thank you letter like this before. Like this is the first, and the stickers are so cool and unique. I put a mental health sticker in, and then I put, like I said, like a little breathing sticker in as well for someone to take deep breaths. So it's really cool. Gratitude's huge for me personally, but it's awesome. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on my podcast today. Your journey from author to educational thought leader is truly inspiring. And book signings on top of volcanoes, is that a just because or because you can, or?
No, it's a fun story, right? So I think one of the loveliest things that you get as an author is to be able to do book signings. And fortunately, I've been able to do them all over the United States and in other parts of the world. But I'm an outdoors guy. Being indoors and signing books was like, you know what? I got to do something. I got to walk my talk. And sort of the central message of this book, and I should tell your readers, basically the Legacy Letters it's a series of fictional letters written by this father to his children that he never lived to see. And these letters become their practical, moral, and spiritual guidebook for the rest of their life. So it's everything from how to buy a used car, how to take care of horses, how to fall in love, how to deal with heartbreak. I mean, it's a full gamut. But one of the central messages that this guy is always pushing, this father, is that you've got to get out there. You got to take, grab the bull by the horns. You got to live life to the fullest. I thought, you know what? I need to walk the talk. I need to walk the talk of the central message of this book. And how can I do that in a visual way? And I thought, you know what? I want to take my love of outdoors, my love of living, and let's go. And the first ever, what I call first ever book signings, was on horseback on the horse that I used to cowboy on for a living. His name was Boots. And we did it, and we signed books on the horse in front of Barnes & Noble to a big old crowd, and did a digital book signing and an actual book signing there. So I was thinking, well, what else can we do? So we ended up doing things like we did a whistle stop book tour on the East Coast from Orlando all the way to Niagara Falls, 13 cities. We'd sign books on the train, get off, go to Barnes and Noble and
Wow.
Costco. And that was a hoot. We did book signings. We've done book signings on river rafts up in Washington. We've done the grape stomping was at a winery.
Love that.
And for every signing we do, we always make sure that we're paying it forward. We do either support a local charity or we support like St. Jude's Children. In this case, the winery is up in Washington. We supported Seattle Children's Hospital, so all the proceeds went to them. But back to your question about a volcano, we actually did a book signing on top of Mount St. Helens.
Wow. That's so
And
cool.
that was a hoot and a half. We got up there, and there were some people ready. We did the signing. We actually were able to get a signal, and we were on one of the local radio programs there while we were signing books, and it was so much fun. And again, what do people do? They ask the question, "Why are you doing this?" And it leads to the secret sauce answer of, "Hey, this is what this book's all about: living life to the fullest."
That's awesome. I actually have, it was passed down to me from my grandparents, but actually ashes from when the last time St. Helens erupted. So
How cool is it?
I have like a jar of ashes in a memory box tucked away of some of those ashes. So you say St. Helens, that's like some history, like in my family and whatnot, and we have those ashes that are in my possession now. So
That
just
is,
something random.
Hey, Jay, and also, I was 50 miles north of Mount St. Helens when it blew.
Wow.
And it was amazing because it went up and you couldn't even hear it. Actually, my grandparents were north near the Canadian border. They had a sonic boom, practically blew out their windows. And it was silent where we were, but your head craned up like this. And the black went all the way up and then it went out. It was like a sci-fi film. It was unbelievable. Blue sky and black like that. But yeah,
Crazy.
yeah, it was crazy. It was wild.
That's so cool. Yeah, I was not alive when St. Helens blew, hence why I only have the ashes that were passed down to me. My first significant life event that happened in my lifetime was 9/11.
Yes,
So
that would do it.
that's like one of those moments like you remember exactly where you were, where you're doing. I think I've only had like two of those in my lifetime. I've had 9/11 and I'm a big sports guy, so my other one was when Kobe passed. So when that helicopter crashed, like those were like in my lifetime. I'm almost 30. I'll probably be close to 30 by the time this comes out. But those two things are like my two big you remember exactly where you were moment.
Yeah.
Nothing else has been that significant in my life, so of course my children being born and things like that I remember,
Of
but
course. And getting married. Come on, we got to
getting
get
married
that in there.
twice. I try to forget the first one and focus on the second one, honestly. But
Yeah, there we go.
these are jokes, people. They're jokes. They're jokes. They're jokes. Okay. Um, so what motivates you? Focus on gratitude. Write these letters. Essentially, from what it sounds like, even though they're fictional, it's things that you could have passed down to also to your children as well. So it came from a father's point of view. So what motivated you to focus on that for this book here? Because it's very unique. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is sort of an interesting story. So I actually worked in the film industry, in the feature film industry, and it was great. It's a great young man's game, and but there's a lot of very unhappy people there making a lot of money, and I sort of became disillusioned with the bright lights and the fast pace of life, and all that stuff. And it's sort of like having a midlife crisis. And if you're going to have one, have it early. That's my joke. So please have them early, get it out of the way.
Right.
So mine was, I started driving all around the West. I call it drive about. The Aborigines call it a walkabout. I call it a drive about. I was looking for something, a way out, and I found it. I ended up at a small town along the border in Arizona,
Mm-hmm.
and was looking for work. And I said, "Hey, what do you got out there?" He says, "Can you work on a fence line?" I said, "Sure as heck can." And my granddad had a small ranch when I was growing up, so I'd been around some of that initially, but I ended up working as a cowboy on this very, very desolate ranch for about 5 years. I sort of came full circle, came back to my roots. And while I was out there, I picked up the pen I had written when I was younger, had several books out, but I hadn't really seriously written about anything. And all of a sudden, this pen wanted to write these letters. And so here I was without a child, but for whatever reason, it came up within me, and these letters of life. And I guess it's a reflection on what's truly important in life. And for your listeners, before the book was published, I had written 95% of the book and all these letters before my son was born. And one of the letters and these letters were written over years. They took so much time because they're sort of letters of wisdom. And
so how old are you during this like writing process?
I was about your age.
Okay. So
it's a great question.
You've done like a little bit later then in life.
Yes.
Kind of. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, it's a really important question because a lot of people are like, well, you wrote these as a father. No, I didn't. And I even reflect back on reading these letters, and I can read a few passages from it here. And I'm sort of amazed at how much I wanted to be a father and a good father, and how much I wanted to pass on the wisdom of, quote unquote, wisdom of what I'd learned up to that point in life. Anyhow, but the last letter eluded me for years, and it was on my boy becoming a man, which is, again, to our point about being a father. And it was a boy and girl he was writing to, but this was specific to this. And I could never get the ending. Every letter had a sweet spot, an emotional PowerPoint, but I couldn't get that. And I'm sitting there writing to him. He's on the table in his little plaything. And I said, God, I'm having trouble with this thing. Can you help me out? And I go, really? Write this letter to you. And that's what I did. And the whole thing just transformed. And I'll read a couple passages from that later on. Yeah, if you want. Yeah, let's see. Well, here's the book, everyone. Shameless plug.
I love it. Hey, I love shameless plugs. I love when people just like plug on their own without me having to ask. Like I mention it and stuff, and it'll be in the show notes. I'll cap it at the end of the podcast, it's like I always do. But I love when we get to like kind of pop things up as we go a little bit. Or I have like I have a pile of like 3-4 books that I keep right by my desk here, by my computer for like quick reference, because they're like books I always feel like I'm referencing while I'm recording. So
yeah. Well, here's the book, and here is the letter called On My Boy Becoming a Man. And he usually starts with some sort of story about something in his life, but I will read this portion here. When do you become a man? You become a man when you marry, not just for love, but to be a partner for your wife, to be the best man you can be with her, and when you fall short, to admit your shortcomings and to constantly strive to be a great man to your wife. You become a man when having children, you not only physically look after and protect them, but also protect them with all the love and learning you have to give. You become a man when you give your family the best of who you are. And ultimately, by being the best man to yourself and to your wife, you are being the best man to your children. And that, my son, is a great gift and responsibility. But what type of man should you be, my son, above all else? A good man. Above all else, strive to be a good man. A good man in your papa's book is a great man, one who constantly strives to be the best of men to himself and to others, because the world can never have enough good men. And what makes a good man, my son? A good man is being fair in both your words and your actions. When you admit being wrong and you right that wrong. A good man knows when he's been humbled and he learns from his humility. Being a good man means to speak with sincerity and love with certainty. A good man will try to act wisely by thinking first and then acting. A good man tells the truth. A good man lives for the joy in life and the happiness of being alive, not shackled to the wants of the future or the regrets of the past.
I love that. I don't have anything to say. It's so accurate, right? You are, the man that you become is one that's accountable, right? You have to own up to your mistakes. You have to own up to when you fall short. There's people you have to be accountable to. There's people that you owe your best to, and those people deserve for you to have that accountability. So I love that.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think the something that all dads, and this is from my perspective, that all dads should really know is about walking your talk. We're always talking about that before, but what do I mean by walk that talk? You are the greatest example right there in front of your kids of what you're, if you want your, it's, what was the old saying? Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
walk your talk in front of your kids. If you want your son to be a stand-up guy or a stand-up girl, that's an old moniker or name that you call it, but to be a stand-up guy means you are honest, you are accountable, you are filled with gratitude, you help other people, you do these are, and some say, these are old-fashioned values. I said, they're timeless. They never go out of fashion. Being honest, being fair, being good. I mean, all these things. Truly, it's amazing. A quick story aside, when my son was younger, when he went to bed, we would say this sort of mantra, like a little prayer. And I said, what do you want to be in life? And he would answer, I want to be a good man, an honest man, a fair man. And we'd just say these things. And he was in a kindergarten class, and the teacher sat the kids around and said, what do you want to be in life? And, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a video game guy, so forth. My son says, I want to be a fair man. And the teacher goes, oh, you want to be in a circus? No, I want to be a fair man. And that's all he could come out with. And later on, she came to me and said this about the fair man. I says, I didn't understand. I says, oh my gosh, out of the mouth of babes and the things that you repeat. And I told her what we would do every night. And she said, wow. And I said, wow. Because there it is, an example of walking your talk. It gets in there. It really does. Very cool.
It does. I mean, our kids are going to regurgitate, pieces of who we are. The more and more as they get older, they're going to repeat different pieces. They're going to sound off different things. They're going to pick up on our mannerisms, things we teach them, things we do, things like that. And they're going to build those habits and routines and whatever that looks like for them. Each kid's going to be different. Each situation is going to be different. But they're going to learn those things, or they're going to look to our example for what this, man thing looks like in my life. What's a good man look like? What's a fair man look like? What's an honest man look like? And, that example is in the father. That example is in the listener right now, right? It's in you, it's in me, it's in our listeners. Like, that example is you. And you have to have that example. You have to be that example. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, get to, kind of, want to, things, anything like that. It's a have to kind of thing. You have to be that example you want them to be. Especially for me, I have daughters. I have 2 daughters. And so I have to be that example of a man. I have to be that example of, all the things that I want them to look for potentially later down the line, when they get married and when they're in relationships, things like that, things that they look for, things that they, expect, and things like that, for how I treat, both their mother and their stepmom now, right? How those relationships look and things like that. And for how I treat others, how I treat them, how I, all the different little, and it's the little things too. It's not just the big thing. It's not just the gifts or the affection or anything like that, but it's the day to day. It's the patience, it's the words, it's the affirmations, it's all the things up and down in between throughout the day that are impactful, that are probably even more impactful than the big things. The big things are great, right? You can open the car door for them, load them in the car, you can, help them up, you can help them out, help them with different things and whatnot. But there's some things that, are just going to be because of your example and because of what you do versus what you say. Kids are going to pick up on what you do versus more than what you say. And that's that's just how it is.
100%. 100%. I think a great example of that is the most basic building blocks of civility and gratitude, which are please and thank you. And so not only are you doing that in front of your kids, you're constantly saying that to your partner, your spouse, your girlfriend, your wife, whatever the case may be. Get them to say it. For example, you say something, and what do you say? Thank you. What do you say, please? And guess what? You actually have to do it 10,000 times. It's a lot with your kids. And then one day, guess what? They're doing it on their own. And it's over and over again. You're absolutely amazed. It's almost like that. What's that thing in like baseball or any of the athletics? If you throw a ball 10,000 times, you shoot a basket 10,000 times, you throw a football, you eventually, right? It's the same thing with please and thank you. To all those dads out there, you cannot say it enough. You cannot say it enough, and you cannot say it enough to other people in front of your kids so they recognize that is one of the most important building blocks. It starts from there because that not only has gratitude, it's got respect, it's got kindness, it's got all these great mix of things in it with 2 simple phrases, please and thank you.
Yeah, no, that gratitude is something I wanted to shift our conversation. It's a great segue there. You set me up perfectly there. Nice little alley-oop, slam dunk kind of here. But, gratitude is practical, right? Gratitude is an
Love
everyday
that.
kind of thing.
Love that. Yep.
Is you do it every single day. You do it throughout your day. Our kids learn it very early. Please, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. This year, I haven't done it in the past. I've been, not the greatest at it, but since I've been doing it more, just with podcasting, kind of like I mentioned earlier, sending out these thank you cards for when I have a guest on my podcast and things like that. I send them a thank you card. I take the time. It's not typed either. I sit down, I write it out, all the things, right? I sincerely try to think back to the episode. I think back to the person, and then I thank them, whatever thank you I feel is fitting. And then I sign it, throw some stickers in the envelope. Envelopes taste weird.
Right.
But, and then, then I handwrite the address. I have to go down to the special mail store every couple weeks and buy a new book of stamps, which is, it's like so weird because it's like, I thought I could just get these back when I was a kid, you just go to like Safeway or Albertsons or any supermarket or grocery store and I could be, oh, let me get a book of stamps. And they were like, $5-6, I think. Those were like $20. And I'm like, what the heck? The thank you card literally cost $6, but the stamp cost 20 for the book. And
Right.
I'm like, these two things should be opposite. But I mean, it's a rarity now. Like people just don't send those things, or everything's like automated shipping or automated labels or things like that that gets like printed on, things like that. So those handwritten cards, they don't come very often. They're a rarity. Thank you cards or holiday cards are now digital mostly. People just kind of email out, text them out, things like that to whoever they want to send them to. It's just like this is just weird, but that's kind of where we're at. But anyways, going back, gratitude offers a practical, right? My girls this year are going to work together and write thank you cards for their gifts to people that they got gifts from. Something I believe that's going to be very important for them, and it's a research-backed tool to improve children's mental health well-being. So for you, can you elaborate on your gratitude practices and how they've helped build resilience and provided coping during kids' formative years, or even for you personally?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great segue there. We can go to writing thank you cards. So this is sort of another interesting thing from the book. One of the first letters in the book is how to say please and thank you. Of course, a big fan of that. And as one day I was teaching a letter writing, how to write in cursive at our local school where my son went to school. It was an after school class because they don't teach it anymore, sadly, in my estimation. And I was writing something from the book and I was putting it up on the board, and you could tell the kids were like falling asleep and all this. But I've done lots of different fun things with them to get them inspired about different. And all of a sudden, I turned to them and said, "Hey, what if we did the largest handwritten thank you letter in the world, like the size of a football field?" And they're like, "Oh my God, that would be great, Mr. Bambo." And all of a sudden I was like, what did I just say? I
What did
couldn't
I get
believe it.
myself into?
Just so what happened? We wrote the world's largest handwritten thank you letter. It's the size of a high school basketball gym. The
Wow.
entire school signed it. And we got in the local news and all this, and local postmaster was a lot of fun. But the running question was, what do you do with the world's largest handwritten thank you letter? Running joke is, you got to send it. Next year, create the world's largest envelope. The world's largest stamp, by the way, 20 by 15 feet. Everything was gigantic. Postmaster stamped it. We sent it to our sister school about 10 miles away. We rolled it up. Now, you guys all get to see this. You're going to get to see it. It's on nationalthankyouletterday.com. But the kids had to roll it up. It was the size of a burrito, about a paper burrito, 25 feet long. We had like 20 students carry it. We had to unscrew the doors of the gym to get it out, stuff it in the back of the deal, unroll it out there. As a result, we got the Guinness World Record, and we were on the Kelly Clarkson show. So super, super cool. But then you're saying, well, what is this all about? And you're saying it's about the getting people excited about writing thank you letters again. Why are thank you letters important? What's the essential idea? And I love what you were talking about, the effort it took to write a thank you letter. Who saves their texts? Who saves their emails? I mean, we maybe save our emails, but if they're thank you letters or thank you emails or thank you love letters, we don't save them really. They're done so quickly, they're gone. But guess the essential element of a thank you letter is the time taken to do it. And guess what? If you think about what's one of the greatest gifts you have to give in life is the time that you have on this planet, you are actually putting that time into this entity. And when people receive it, they're holding the time you have given them. And it's like, wow, that's amazing. That's for adults. Now for kids, it goes right over their head. But the cool part is in doing gratitude as opposed to just practicing it, but actually doing it, walking your talk. Once again, if you do a thank you letter, sit down with your kids and do that letter while they're doing it. And after a while it becomes a habit, because the last thing that kids want to do, like, oh, I got to do thank you letters. Yeah, you actually watch. I'm doing a thank you letter. And if the girls see you doing it, what are you doing, Dad? I'm doing this. Hey, it's time. Why don't you write this to Grandma? Tell her how much you love her. It doesn't even have to be a transactional thank you, like a gift from somebody. It can be what we've been doing with National Thank You Letter Day is thanking our local service people that are garbage people, or the cashiers. We do things to the military, to our teachers, we did a thing last year where sending a thank you letter to someone who taught you something in life, like a mentor or somebody. And that was, a lot of people were like, wow, I haven't thought I had to do that. That was my gift to myself. Like, you know what? I thought about the 3 or 4 people that were very powerful people in my life, and I sent them a thank you letter. And again, man, when you receive a thank you letter, as you know, it's the gift of giving and the gift of receiving. So, so powerful. And there's just so many other ways for kids to learn gratitude, but this thank you letter, again, not old fashioned. It is timeless. So timeless.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I wanted to pull this up. I found it. Wasn't hard to find.
Good.
But just so that people can see if they're watching on Spotify or YouTube, here it is right here.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm hanging out with Magician.
But then let me fast forward just to kind of give people an idea. I shouldn't get copyrighted for that. I don't think I will. I will.
No,
sorry, Kelly.
That's a good word. It's all about
Sorry,
passing
Kelly.
on gratitude. This is good stuff.
Yeah, we're viewing it on her channel. I mean, anyway, so it should load, but there's a kind of a image of it in the gym here. It's probably going slow. There we go. Look how huge this thing is. I'm gonna go ahead and pause it, but that thing is literally the size of the gym. Sign. It's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so cool. So, yeah, and we still have it. It's a big boy. Yeah.
So where's it at now?
It's in a storage unit.
How big is that storage unit?
It's folded up. It's about 4 feet high by however. It's foldable. It's been folded a number of times. So, but we try to keep it. We bring it out once every couple of years, and there it is in all its glories.
That's really cool. That's such a project, but I bet those kids really learned something, between the gratitude and, all the time it took to do that and put it together and everything. Those kids are going to remember that for a lifetime. They're like, I signed that thank you card, and they'll be telling their kids, I remember back in my day, we made this big old thank you card at school, and I'm part of a Guinness World Record, and something that you just tell, right? One of those work tells you to say fun facts about yourself on the first day, and that's like, oh, I was part of making the world's largest, biggest thank you card back when I was in high school, and people go, what? Huh? Kind of thing. But no, the gratitude, like you're saying, like just writing random thank you letters, thank you cards for something random, or just to express, feelings or love or anything, can be really powerful for kids, right? It's really important for kids to be able to do that because it helps them, right? It helps them get things out. And then writing, there's something about writing in itself that helps children work through stressors, that helps them work through any pressure that they may be feeling, because it helps you just get your thoughts out. I think that's for any individual in particular, but kids too. But having a journal, even if it's a guided journal or something, having that tool accessible to you is really important. Having prompts or no prompts and just writing or whatever that looks like for you can be really important for your day-to-day, for just with stressors and things like that. You can express gratitude in these journals. You can express, anything stressing you out. You can express so many different thoughts and feelings and emotions in journals and through writing. It's really special to get those things out. And yeah, so it can really help work through the stressors and the emotions and things like that.
Yeah, and I think and to that point, I think the one of the biggest things that writing a thank you letter does is it's a practical way to show how to give. And that's another building point of if you're teaching kids about kindness, about gratitude, and all these things. We use this word gratitude. It's a very, very wide, big word, but what's the practical aspects of it? The practical aspects are, how do you do this? How do you make it real? And a thank you letter is a point of that. And so they're saying, well, why do I have to write this? And you say, guess what? It'll make grandma smile, or it'll make this person. And it's like, this is the first steps to giving without getting an immediate response. We're so hooked on immediacy these days, right? Everything with the phone. Oh, if I don't get this back immediately, then I'm a whatever type of person. But to give something like a letter, it goes out there, and that is it. Your heart, your soul, your gratitude inside that gift is being given, and it will be received, and you know it. You know they're going to. Who doesn't open a thank you letter? And that's what I love about what you're doing, is that these people receive it. They're going, what the heck is this? And all of a sudden, and they will remember you. Talk about remembering, right? It's like a good handshake. It's like a nice hello. It's like you receive that, and you will hold on to that for days and months and years.
Yeah, no, it's something that's special too, right? Because like you're saying here, it's something that's not instant, right? And I thought I was doing something wrong because so sometimes on weekends my mail doesn't always come, or different random days of the week the mail doesn't always come. But I was putting my stack of thank you letters, all addressed, stamped, everything. I was putting them in my mailbox because I remember as a kid, you could just put things in the mailbox and you put the flag up, and the mail carrier took them. And I'm like, these aren't moving. Is this not a thing anymore? I was like freaking myself out. I was like, is this not a thing anymore? So I would put them in like early, like mid morning, and then wait all day. And then come the evening, I would go and check because I would still see the flag up and they were still there. So I'd pull them and try again the next day, pull them and try again the next day. And then they were finally taken. I was like, okay, that is a thing. But then the mail carrier didn't put the flag down. So I don't know if they still teach that in like mail school or whatever.
Yes, they do.
So I don't know, maybe because you have to like lift the flag up and then put it down on my mailbox, not just like a throw down kind of thing, or
Yeah.
maybe they just, I don't know. But I was like, man, this is it felt like weird because the last time I did it, I was at the mail store and then I already had everything with me and I just stamped them all and put them in the box there and knew it was like safe and ready to go. So now I'm just like, oh man, I hope the mail person actually took them, or something happened, or they didn't just get taken kind of thing. But I don't know. So hopefully they end up where they're supposed to go.
Yes, right. And they do. And they eventually get there. And people are they're blown away by, it's the old thing of if there was a fire, what are the first things you grab? Well, you grab your children, your pets, or maybe it's your pets, your children, depending on which order that is. And then you grab photographs and letters. Now, of course, everything's uploaded into the whatever universe, but those letters, people will talk about, they'll go back and reread letters and reread. Why? Because you can hold them. You literally can hold them. It's funny, sort of a different segue. I would do this. I talked to the same school. We talk about Valentine's Day or Valentine's Day was coming up, and we were talking about thank you letters and writing letters and so on and so forth. And I said, all right, let's take a vote in the class. I said, ladies, how many of you would like to receive a Valentine's Day text? Of course, no one emails anymore, so it'd be a text. Or would you like to receive a real letter? And, the girls put their hands out. I say, how many for a text? And, and then a letter, boom, the majority, right? And then I said the same thing to the guys, and they did the same sort of deal. And I was a little bit amazed, like, oh, they really want to receive a letter. So we wrapped up the class. I said, does anybody have a question about anything, or, want to chime in? And this kid in the back of the class says, hey, Mr. Papritz, when can we start learning how to write those Valentine's Day letters? It's like the guy clicked in. He's like, yeah, I saw those girls' hands go up. Yeah, that works. So yeah, they still matter. They work.
Well, yeah, because if you think of it just like with psychology, and when you touch something, you have something tangible. It's more because it is more real. But when it's just coming through your phone screen, it doesn't feel as like personal, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool. Like you still sent me a birthday text, or you still sent me a whatever text. Like that was great, that was kind of whatever, kind of thing. But like having like its actual like physical thing and handwriting and maybe some smudge marks or something, or
oh my gosh, yeah.
You can tell like someone was writing in and their hand got tired because it started getting like pretty and then it got unpretty, and you can tell they're trying really hard to get it pretty again. or they left their pen here for a little bit too long because you got like little like ink dots randomly or bleed through. It's like, man, they were really struggling on this one.
Yeah.
Or you can see it go from like cursive to like print to cursive to print, and just like the uniqueness of how someone writes and things like that, and their tone, and you can like hear their voice more. With the
There
text,
you
you just see
go.
the words kind of thing,
Yeah,
and
Jay.
you almost
Yeah,
hear like
really,
Siri
truly.
or an automated voice.
Yep.
Because if you have an iPhone and you have AirPods, then when you get a text, every time it'll come through your AirPods and just read it in a voice, like an automated voice. But when it comes through like a letter, you can actually hear that person's voice. You can actually hear their thoughts and their feelings and kind of how they talk and things like that. It's not as like correct, it's not as proper because you have no spell check, you have no Grammarly, you have no anything like that. So you're just doing it to the best you can kind of thing. And it's not going to be perfect, but it's not supposed to be perfect. And the less perfect it is, the better almost as well. So it's really unique, and it really, it costs nothing, right, to have that level of gratitude. It may cost you, $25 for 25 different thank you cards between stamps and the cards, but I mean, it's $25, right? That you can send to 25 different people, and the gratitude that you're able to express is timeless, right? It's something that they're good, like you're saying, they're going to hold on to that for a long time. They're going to remember that
Oh,
for a really long time, and then
huge.
that comes back really positively, like towards me, right? To where I'm going to pick on my friend Matt, Dr. Matt here, is he sent me his book, the Neurodiversity Playbook. And, I was supposed to send him some money for it, but then the next thing I knew, it just shows up, right? So that was really cool. I'm signed and everything, personally, like signed and stuff to me. So I was like, that's really special and cool. So what I did is I took one of my children's books that I have, called A Baseball Game with Dad, and I have just random copies sitting around the house and things like that. So I took one
Oh,
of these
cool.
and I signed the inside of it for him. And then I sent his thank you card and his book to him. A week or so later, I get an email back from him with a picture of his son holding the book, said we have a new favorite bedtime story kind of thing.
Nice.
And,
Nice.
it's just one of those things, it just makes you feel like, it's like, great. My book got into the hands of a kid who liked it and found value in it, or liked the pictures or the colors or whatever. He's real little. I think he's like 2 or 3. He's real little. But it was like, just so cool, when we just shared, random things kindly, like the kindness comes back, and, those kids are going to talk about it. He's going to talk about it. Everyone I've sent a thank you card to is going to remember the podcast. And so when they're talking to someone like, man, I really want to go on a podcast or something, it all comes full circle eventually, right? They're, oh, I know this one guy, or I know Jay. You should talk to Jay, kind of thing. He's fantastic, and it all comes full circle. So just the full circle of gratitude is really cool too, because it always comes back to you in ways that you don't really expect it, right? And
It really connect. It makes connection, doesn't it? I mean,
exactly.
that's sort of the heart and soul of it, as opposed to division. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if gratitude is really about creating connection, I think that's one of the amazing parts of it. You were referring to a little earlier about how some of the things that kids can do, saying hello to somebody on the street,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, opening a door, polite moments that you do, and you give them away like this gratitude candy, and people are always they're just amazed that you would do that, and it's like, wow, what a great feeling it is to give. And if kids are seeing that, if our children are watching us do that, I mean, wow, we are raising just outstanding people. Whatever you do in life, please raise a stand-up girl or a stand-up guy, so that when people say, wow, I remember that he was the nicest guy. Talk about a great thing to be called. That's the
Yeah.
nicest guy I've ever met. Wow, what a compliment beyond compliments. Every time I saw that guy, he had a smile and he always helped me with something, and or whatever the case may be. So what a lovely, lovely way to live one's life. And not only to live one's life, but again, to walk our talk, to show our kids what it is to be a really good human being.
Yeah. No, and speaking of that too, there's some really easy ways to do that. Last year, so we're recording this around the holiday season. It'll come out probably closer to Valentine's Day, honestly. So that Valentine's trick we're talking about, gentlemen, when you're getting that Valentine's card, you're thinking of what to get your significant others for Valentine's Day. Well, that's a great tip right there. Write them a letter, write them a card, right? Actually make it heartfelt. I still have a card somewhere from my dad from many Christmases ago, and my dad's not a guy who expresses a lot of love like verbally and things like that, except for toward my kids. He does it toward his granddaughters all the time. Not towards me, but towards granddaughters. Whatever, Dad. I see how it is. Anyways, but I digress. I have a card from him, just expressing like his like feelings and love and stuff towards me as a son and whatnot. And that was really special because that was like one of the few times that he's actually done that. So of course I hold on to that card, and it's somewhere in a box, I think, but I have it, I promise. So I digress there. But going back, one thing that I had my girls do last year that I haven't had them do this year quite yet, probably will next time I have them or whatnot, we go to a store or something, is I bought them a box of candy canes last year. So when we go to the store, I told them, okay, whenever we go to a store over the next like week or so, I have my girls half the time. So over the next week, if we go out somewhere, we're going to leave that box in the car, and you have to take 2 or 3 candy canes in with you. And
Nice.
your goal is, by the time we leave that store, is to give out 2 or 3 candy canes. And so a lot of holidays coming up over the next, few months. I'm dropping this in February. So great time to maybe go and buy some boxes of heart or little like chocolates or something and give them to your kids to give to other kids just randomly.
Yeah.
Of course, then you can teach your kids to be social and to interact and say, hey, can I give this to your kid? Kind of thing. So it makes them get out of their comfort zone. It makes them, approach and be social and whatnot too, and then give something, because every kid loves candy. So it's really hard for a kid to give another kid their candy.
Yeah. Yes. That's a great point. Yeah.
So it's just something really cool too. But then they learn to give, just to give. They just give to give. They have no expectation of getting anything back because they'll never get anything back for that candy. But they just give to give. Yeah. And they feel good, right? They feel happy, or they're just checking a box, whatever they feel, right? Whatever my kids feel while they're doing that. Maybe they like it, maybe they don't. But it brings joy to the other kids. Maybe that kid hasn't gotten a candy cane. Maybe that kid, and it's a conversation we get to have then after. Maybe that kid didn't get a candy cane. Maybe that kid's not going to get candy. Maybe that was really special because, maybe that was their first candy cane they got all year. Or whatever the case may be. It can really spread a lot of cheer. You can do the same thing with Valentine's Day. You can do the same thing with Easter.
Sure.
Give your kids 12 eggs to give randomly to other kids while they're out and about, right? Just whatever it is. Help teach your kids to give without expecting anything back. Because that's just going to create really good practices in their daily routines. And, and additionally, we can incorporate gratitude in our daily routine. Saying hi to someone, lifting someone up, giving someone a compliment, holding a door, going out of our way for someone. We want to incorporate these things into our daily lives as adults and for our children as well. Because our goal as parents, at least for me, and one thing I preach all the time on this podcast is I want to make sure I raise kids that are kind, raise kids that are, good, just good people, that aren't assholes, that are, empathetic, compassionate. Of course they mind their business. If they don't get involved in what they don't got to get involved in. And they're just the kids that's like, oh, they're just good kids, right? We look at them, they're just good kids. They're just good kids at the end of the day.
Good kids. Yeah. At the end of the day. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we want again. And as dads, it's the time to step up. It is truly the time to say every single thing I do is an action. And I've been a big fan of putting phones away at dinner time, or putting all the electronic stuff away. And so that kids can see. But again, what do? We say, hey, I want you to read a book. And of course, this gets into all reading and inspiring reading. And yet what are parents doing? They're on the phones or they're like this. Hey, you actually have to read a book in front of your kids for them to go, I'm inspired by you reading a book. And so they watch you like hawks. They are going to do what you do. And and if you take that example and they see that reading, oh my gosh. And again, big I want kids to read. Super, super important. Not just to read for reading's sake, which I love, but because of all the amazing things it does up here. And that's a whole nother conversation right there.
That's a whole other podcast in itself, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
The dinner table thing you're talking about, my daughter has created a list of rules that we have posted by our dinner table. All sorts of rules that we try to follow. And then it's a strike system. She has her own like little strike system and things like that for us. Yeah, it's really cool, but that's meaningful to her. She cares that we have good meals and they're meaningful. We have rules and expectations and things like that. And she holds everyone accountable at the table, all four of us, except herself. She doesn't really hold herself to the same rule. She's too busy making sure everyone else is following them. But it is what it is. So, but no, it's important. And then, the literacy aspect of it. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no. You just reminded me of a story once. I was local high school actually did a play of the legacy letters. It was interesting, and all I said to them is, "Look, I just want to get with you afterwards and talk about it." It says, "Whatever you want to do with it, I'm fine." And so they put it on, and it was really cool. So afterwards, we get around a table. There's about 7 or 8 of them. It was instantaneously, what does everyone do? They put their phones on the table, right? Okay, you see this everywhere you go. And we started off, and I says, guys, I gotta tell you something. And I get the long pause. I go, my time here is short, and my coming here is because I wanted to be with you and learn from you, but I don't have a long time to live. And I'll have to tell you that if my being here is not important to you, I understand that. But the phones, that indicates to me that you're waiting for someone else to be more important. And actually, I'm the most important person in the world because I'm giving you my time and you are giving your time to me. So if you wouldn't mind, if you could put the phones away, and it's very, very, it's a very powerful moment because we're here together and with no one else. So they put the phones away, and one of the guys says, "Mr. Papritz," he said, "Can I ask you a personal question?" I said, "Fine." He says, "Are you dying or everything okay?" I says, "Yeah, I am." And he goes, "Well, how much time do you have left?" And I says, I think about 60, 70 years. And they all just, they're just like, what are you talking about? Yeah. And I said, yeah, guys, I don't know how much time I have left on them. They all laughed. They all got it. And afterwards, I saw them a couple times. Phones were gone, And again, who's the most important people? It's the people in front of you right there. And again, another example of walking your talk. Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly. And you have to, especially with our kids, right? We have to be, into it. And we have to be there. We have to walk our talk. And if we want our kids to read, then we should be reading. We should be learning. We should be doing new things, not just scrolling TikTok, which maybe we can't do anymore by the time this comes out because
Oh
it was
my gosh.
allegedly banned on January of 2025. So this is coming out in February. So we're probably
Wow.
about almost a month into no TikTok, which is really weird to say, like knowing it, like we're recording this December 15th. But
Yeah.
by the time this comes out, that second week of February, just because of scheduling and everything like that, that TikTok could be gone. Like we could be talking about something that could very well not
Isn't that
exist in the
something?
U.S. anymore. That's so weird. Anyway, that's a
Yeah.
totally different thing. But more
Yeah.
time to read. More time to read books, more time to learn, more
Yeah.
time
There we
to,
go.
invest in
There we
yourself
go,
and
Jey.
get some time back and things like that. Let's bring it back. More time to write some thank you cards and some letters while you have that
There.
downtime. You're looking for something to do with your hands right there. So, but the literacy is so important. I just want to touch on it here. I've talked to many authors on the podcast, talking to many children's authors, big book authors as well. But literacy is so important, right? Most kids, a lot of kids, a lot of adults can't read past the third grade level. Right now I have a second grader. When this comes out, I'll still have a second grader. But, my second grader is almost reading at a fourth grade level because she's always had books in her hands. She's always had books in her hands, and she's testing, or by the time this comes out, would have tested for placement in a a more advanced like curriculum going forward, starting next year in third grade and going forward, which is really cool and really exciting because she's so capable, she's so talented, and it really excites me for her because she's so smart, she's so talented. Schoolwork comes easy to her. I know her. I know she's going to do incredibly well on those tests, and I know she's going to get placement into this program, which is really going to benefit her and just shoot her on the trajectory just toward just absolute success. I'm really excited. But that's because of literacy, right? That's because of taking the time to read together while she was young and putting books in her hands and challenging her. I had Magic Treehouse chapter books in this girl's hands in first grade. As soon as she could read in kindergarten, she was
God,
picking up chapter books and
I
things like
love to
that and
hear
teaching
that.
herself.
I love to hear that. My gosh.
Reading and all the things, right? Magic Treehouse books, Junie B. Jones books, and all these things that she just, she loves picking up books. She loves picking up books. And so it's so important for our kids to develop that literacy because if without it, if you can't read past the third grade level, you're really going to struggle. I work with a lot of different youth and parents right now, and them not there. I notice the literacy barriers. I notice the look in their eyes to when I'm saying like words or phrases, things like that. It's kind of like a okay, and they're just agreeing because they don't want to. They don't want to look like they don't understand what you're talking about, right? And I try not to use too much clinical jargon when I talk. And in my 9 to 5, I'm a mental health clinician, so I try not to use any clinical jargon when I talk to people. Sometimes I use bigger words and things like that, but I try not to. But you can still see kind of the barriers, or like some people are hesitant to fill out different forms because maybe they can't read all the words or they don't understand all the words on a piece of paper like that. So literacy is such a powerful tool in itself. It's something that needs to be practiced, something that we need to work with our kids on, something that we need to be invested. And you have to inspire that love to read. I actually stopped reading or loving books when I was probably in middle school or so. I just didn't find it practical.
Yeah. Isn't that
I couldn't
interesting?
find
Yeah.
it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I just fell out of love with it. Like all through grade school and whatnot, I loved it. We used to have AR testing. We would get little dog tags for how many points we got. It was a competition to see who could get the most dog tags, and so we would all read the biggest books that we could find in the library that were worth the most points for AR tests, and fly through them and take these tests to get the points. And whoever had the most tags on their little chain necklace, things like that, was like the coolest kid and best reader and things like that. It was really exciting. And then we didn't have anything like that in middle school, so it was like, oh, well, what's the point of reading? Come to find out, later as I get older, I get diagnosed with ADHD. I just can't pay attention long enough to read an actual physical book. I listen to audiobooks. I really enjoy audiobooks. It's better input for me. I like short books. I like to read. I really like reading. I just found this out recently. I read a book. I read this book right here. Really cool, great book, really unique. But if you haven't read it, I can tell you more about that. There's another podcast coming out then after talking more about that. But I read it via PDF or I read it via ebook, right? And I flew through that thing in like 3 days. It was so much easier. Like I flew through it. I could make the
Interesting.
words bigger and
Right.
adjust it to myself. And the electronic reading was so much better for me. I was like, wow, this was so much better because this I can't focus on this. Like physically, I lose my attention and I can't do it. But if it's electronic or if it's audiobook, I find myself like, okay, I'm like into this. Like audiobook,
Yeah.
especially. Like I love audio. Like I love podcasts. I love audiobooks. I love all those things. And the audio input does really well because I can multitask. I can do multiple things. That's just the ADHD in me. But I can listen. I can do something else and just have that audio input coming in, and then enjoy it and pick up and remember things coming from it. So however my brain works, it likes the audio and then also being able to do something at the same time because the physical, I'm doing something physical at the same time. The physical part of it is really important here. It's hard to just sit down and listen to an audiobook because you can be really bored out of I'm personally bored out of my mind when I'm just sitting down and reading an audiobook. I have to be doing something else. Maybe I'm playing a video game and listening to an audiobook, but I just need some kind of other sensory input. And that's just for me for the ADHD. Everyone's different there, but we have to find ways that we can love to read, right? And rediscover the joy of reading, right?
Yeah, and that's here's a real quick, wonderful segue to some of the things I've done relative to that. So people are saying, well, why? So if you go to carewtube.com, CAREW tube.com, you can see these I love to read videos. And why did I create the I love to read? Yeah, another shameless plug. But what's really fun about them is I'll sit here. The first one that we ever did was on, again, back to the horse I worked on as a cowboy. And here we got the book and I'm reading and I'll turn it like this. And I go, you know what? I love to read and I love to ride. And I spurred the horse and Boots farted. And I says, we can't do that. So we did the second take. He farted louder. Third take, even louder. It's like he knew he was on camera. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is great. Kids will love it. We put it out there, got a gazillion views, and it was, that type of thing. But then I've done 70, 80, many of these. And I'll do them in different situations where I'm either on, let's say, a river raft, or I'm playing putt-putt, or I'm in front of the Statue of Liberty or the Washington Monument, or doing things or being in different places, always with the idea, there we go, or snowmobiling, there's one, and there's lots of fun ones there. And the whole idea is, and it's a little bit of a trick because kids are like, oh, I'll watch a YouTube video, but then they'll ask, why is this author doing this? Which again begs this lovely question. And then I get to talk about, well, guess what? Being an author is not just about being on YouTube. It's all these other great things that go on with it. Where is he doing it? Why is he doing it? That's cool. And it is cool. It's so fun. So it's a sort of a sneaky way to get kids inspired about reading, and teachers can use that to their benefit. And it's a lot like National Thank You Letter Day. We've got a PDF on there that explains all the different ways you can talk about that and how to use it. But I love to read, and the first ever book signings. And again, it gets people questioning, especially kids. That's cool. Let's ask more. We did one in front. This was fun, Jay. I did this in front of what's that big sculpture in Chicago? God, I can't believe it's that big silver sculpture. It's huge, it's renowned. It's like the bubble. Everyone out there is going to go, come on, man.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. So my son, who's directed most of these, and I say, okay, we're going to do I love to read. And so we get out there and I do the I love to read. And there's these group of guys, they're junior high school guys, and they're walking behind me. And I think they're like quasi photo bombing.
It's called the Bean.
the bean. Yes, the bean.
The
So
bead,
I rolled. I
the
kept my
cloud
fingers down
bead.
low. I said, yeah, keep rolling, keep rolling, keep rolling. So afterwards, we get done, or does he keep? He might have kept filming it. And these guys come up and go, "Hey, what are you doing?" And it's just, "What's this?" I says, "Well, this is for this Carew tale. I'm an author, so on and so forth." They say, "Well, that's really cool." It says, "Well, how many subscribers do you have?" And I says, "I don't know, 7,000 or 8,000." They go, "That's legit." And I was like,
Mm.
"Serious?" And I was like, "Now you've got like 10 more." And I thought, that was funny. Now they're inspired because we go through the back door of using a YouTube video. That's legit. I thought, there we go.
You hit the target audience.
Get
But
the
no, it is so
target
important. Like
audience.
we have to find we have to find the unique ways to inspire our kids these days, right? We have to find
Yes.
those one of a kind ways to get our kids to interested in new things that speak to them, that speak to the masses too, right? Because the average kid's gonna hear, well, why would I write a thank you card when I can just send a message on a phone, kind of thing, or why would I read when I can, do this instead and just look up what the book's about, kind of thing. And so kids are gonna, find the alternative, the easier way out. That's kind of what they've been taught now in school. Public school in itself is, this book by Craig Haynes he's a PhD in math. We'll talk about here, but how and why public school math is destroying the U.S. It peels back the layers. He's been an educator. He was born in 1936. He's still around today. He's super active, great guy. But basically, he goes through his journey and adventures because of math. How he was never supposed to be anything with math, right? He flunked Algebra 1 in school, but then he went to college. He went to a college course that was way more advanced than he was supposed to be, but because of the math that he had already learned, it was practical. He was able to ace those classes and then went on to become a math PhD and professor and yada, yada, yada. And then explain kind of how the public school math is hurting our kids, hurting their confidence, hurting how, a kid who could really like math fails one test and now they're labeled as really bad at math, or they can't do math, or ruins their career trajectory because maybe that kid who failed an algebra test because algebra is not practical, or an algebra 2 test or a trigonometry test or whatever, failed that, and now they're never going to go on and be an engineer when they're super bright and talented in engineering and building things like that, and now they're destroying things like that. Public school does that to kids. It kills the creativity 1000%. Because public schools are drastically underfunded. Public schools are, a lot of them have an agenda. A lot of them have an agenda-based curriculum, especially here in Washington. We won't have to get into that. I get into that plenty on patriarchy principles, my spin-off of the Young Dad podcast, in addition to this podcast. But there's curriculum coming down in by October 1st, 2025, to adopt LGBTQ plus history in grade schools and elementary schools and in our kids' public schools, which doesn't make sense because we don't even spend enough time talking about Black history or American history as it is. And so why are we introducing this as a requirement, but we're leaving all those other really important things when we still deal with way more systemic racism than anything else in our country, damn near. And so it's just like public schools, they're agenda-based, they're creativity killers, they're not the best option for kids because they're drastically underfunded. Teachers are drastically underpaid. Teachers are given a curriculum by the state, by the government, to say, here, you need to push this curriculum, you need to push this, or things like that. So teachers don't really have a lot of wiggle room to actually teach something, unique and to them and how they want to teach it. And they don't get to just teach math, writing, arithmetic. They're also teaching, agenda too, while they're doing it. So it's really unfortunate. And they're teaching all these weird backwards ways that are really complicated and really hard for kids to grasp. And they can't just do 2 plus 2 and learn really simple, basic ways to do addition and subtraction, things like that. It's all like spelled out and drawn out and all these different things. And it's just like, this doesn't make sense the way you're doing it because it's so long and drawn out and complicated. I speak from this from experience from doing homework with homework in kindergarten is bizarre. Why would you give a kindergartner a packet of homework to do every week? Like, that's asinine. Like,
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense because they're literally 5 and 6 year olds. So that's dumb in itself. But then doing homework for the last 3 years with my kid, she does it all on her own now. She doesn't really need help with it, very rarely. But yeah, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense how they're having them do things or things like that. And it's frustrating as a parent because you see these things and you see how much public school is killing the creativity of these kids and killing their potential. And kind of not setting them up for a successful future to really do anything truly special and, innovative and creative and, engineer the next great big thing that we need. And, it's really disheartening for me as a parent, like seeing it happen in real time, working with a variation of kids, not just my own kids, but other kids like in the public school system as well. So
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting. I know a lot of educators. My folks were teachers. My brother's a teacher. Friends are teachers. And to a person, and I truly believe this, is that part of that problem is that we're teaching to the tests. And the tests
yeah,
are actually wagging the tail of the dog as opposed to the dog wagging the tail. So if you're teaching and the tests are an easy way for schools and school administrations and you talk about an agenda, but the agenda is sort of codified. I mean, it's
mm-hmm.
not to go deep into the weeds on all that, but if your funding is based upon how well your kids do in school and how well they do upon the test, then they've got to do well on the test, and that's people's jobs on the line. And this is how we work. This is the motivation system is set up in a complete. It didn't used to be this way. Probably all the way back to starting in the mid '80s, the '90s. It flipped around because these tests became such a big deal, and so that's
testing became a big deal.
the main
Core became a big deal.
And also back to our reading, that focus on reading is test driven as opposed to, boy, we want to catch all our kids and we want to really help them focus on become, again, better, not only better human beings, but better readers and better inspiring them and the creativity. I totally agree with you right there. And tests are a huge culprit on that. But like you said, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, no, the funding, the funding and the why behind the funding, and they want kids to, as long as and then everything's graded on a curve. As long as we hit the curve and things like that, then we'll be okay. And the curve is really bad. Curve grades are really bad. This book goes into why the curve, is awful, especially in math, because there is no curve in math. It's either you get it or you don't. You either get it right or you don't get it right. That's math, and that's reality. Is you either get things right or you get them wrong. There's no like C average to kind of pull everyone forward kind of thing, and then that goes into No Child Left Behind, and it goes way deeper. It goes way deeper, right? You can look back at all these things and the systemic issues. They all have a systemic issue behind them. When you dig into them, you kind of get into the weeds a little bit, and that's okay. That's kind of what they are. But it takes understanding kind of where all these things come from. But again, like you mentioned, that's a different podcast for a different day. I could go on and on and on. I love talking about this kind of stuff. I love talking about it because it is so deeply like personal to me, just like as a parent. And as someone that works with kids in the public school system, and then also working with Dr. Hain as well, with Triad Math here, which is today's sponsor of the podcast, Triad Math. You can try Triad Math absolutely for free for 30 days. Join the Triad Math tribe. Learn practical math, practical algebra, practical trig, practical geometry. STEM learning. Get ready for ACT, SAT prep as well, and then also set yourself up for a technical career better than 80+% of the people going into those careers. You'll be better set up by using the Triad Math program as well. The 6 tiers. If you're a homeschooling parent, you can also homeschool your kids. Get 10 credit hours of material from the Triad Math program. Legit, it works. It's literally a curriculum that supplements there. So Triad Math is something revolutionary. Dr. Craig Hain has done great work there. So I'm super excited to be affiliated with them and to talk about them. I love talking about it. I love when I can plug them a little bit as well. But,
that wasn't shameless, was it? That wasn't a shameless plug, was it?
No, that was shameless and not unashamed there, because I love Triad Math. I love what it does. I love how it helps people. There was a really cool story that I talked to one of the really success stories of it with this guy. He was homeschooled. He went off to the military. He came back and he was trying to get into a technical career. Right, he didn't want to go like college and things like that, but he was trying to do a technical career, but he couldn't pass the math portion of it. They find Triad Math. He does all the math stuff, and then he's right away, 2 or 3 courses, 2 or 3 exams later, he's acing them. He's acing all these exams because he has all the practical math he needs to know from it in just a few months' time of just applying himself and learning it in a few months' time. Of course, he's a veteran, so he's going to be more disciplined than the average person and things like that. But he learned it so quickly and so rapidly because it filled in all the gaps on the math he didn't know and the math he needed to know. to be successful in his career trajectory. So definitely go and check out Triad Math. You can get the link in the show notes as well to go ahead and try that for free for 30 days. It costs you nothing for 30 days to go ahead and try that. If you love it, great. $30 a month until you finish the program. You get wisdom tools in there and just a whole bunch of great stuff. So highly recommend that. Stay tuned for next week's episode where I will be talking to, her name's Margie. I'm talking about her son that she shared this story with me about, and really cool talking about it. So stay tuned. That'll be February. This comes out February, I think. I don't know, whatever day today is, it'll be next week's episode next week, the next Young Dad podcast episode. I believe this will come out February 14th. So this is actually coming out on Valentine's Day. Lo and behold.
That's
then
great.
Look out for February 17th. February 17th is when that Triad Math podcast will be coming out.
I love it.
But yeah, the last question here I always ask people who come on my podcast is, what advice would you offer to a young dad, age 18 to 22? I became a dad at 22, so I was super young, who are just starting out their fatherhood journey. What is one or two pieces of advice you would offer to them?
I think where we started the whole program and what we said in the very beginning is, guys, it is truly about walking your talk. 1,000,000%, everything you do is being watched. Your kids are watching you. The man, be the man you want your kids to be in the end run. And so how you treat your spouse, your girlfriend, your wife, your significant other, that's huge in teaching kindness and respect and all these things. I mean, we know this. It's a precursor to how they're going to grow up and treat people and their significant others and spouses and wives down the road. Show those acts of kindness every single day. Talk about them. Don't be afraid to talk about why it's important to smile to the people, to reach out, to give a handshake, to give a helping hand, to write a thank you letter. Again, walk that talk 1,000 million times. Teach your kids to say please and thank you. The basic building blocks of humanity, of civility, of these are things we talk about even on nationalthankyouletterday.com. But gosh, that's not old-fashioned. To be polite, it's not old-fashioned to be kind. It's timeless. These are great things to pass on. And again, guys, it's a heck of a journey. It's an incredible adventure. Wouldn't give it up for anything, but it's definitely up to you to walk your talk and to give your kids the best of who you are.
Absolutely. And I think that's the title of the episode, Walk Your Talk. What better title for this episode today? So, Carew, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and passion with us today. This was a very passionate, very insightful conversation into gratitude, into education, into, just overall these quote unquote old-fashioned but really timeless things that we want to instill in our kids, these timeless values that we want to instill. So I really appreciate your time, your energy, and for sharing with me today, with my listeners today as well. For our listeners who want to learn more about your work or purchase your inspiring book, The Legacy Letters, you can visit thelegacyletters.com/buy the books, and you can find it there. I'll also link it in the show notes, of course, so you have an easy click down and click through. But by embracing the lessons in this book, you can start creating a lasting legacy for yourself and for your family. Gives you a start, gives you another tool. The more tools, the better, never hurt. So I thank you all for tuning into the Young Dad Podcast. Remember, teaching gratitude doesn't cost a thing, but can make a world of difference in your child's life. Let's commit to fostering resilience and joy in our families through simple acts of gratitude. Until next time, take care and keep building your legacy.